bizarre and unusual world recreated for ASMR. If you would like to see the original episode, be sure to check out the link below. Today's episode, we will be going over the Winchester house. As usual for this series, I will be covering the who, what, when, where, why, and how of the Winchester house. First, I would like to start with the who. The Winchester house was built by Sarah Winchester. Sarah was born in 1840 and married William Winchester in 1862. Sadly, Sarah and her husband lost their very young daughter in 1866, and her husband ended up dying of tuberculosis in 1881. Now, William's family owned the Winchester Repeating Arms Company. They were responsible for creating the Winchester repeating rifle, and that will play into a bit of Sarah's story. Now, on to an important piece. While still living on the East Coast, Sarah sought out a medium, asking for advice on her life. Now, the medium told her that there was a specific reason that Sarah had had so much tragedy in her life. This medium told her that it was karma, or payback, for all of the lives lost at the hands of the Winchester rifle. And this medium offered Sarah advice on how to confuse or handle all the spirits that surrounded her. So in 1884, Sarah bought a home. As for the where, Sarah moved across the country into an 8-room farmhouse in San Jose, California. She hired over 20 carpenters and started what would be 38 years of building and adding on to what is now known as the Winchester house. So, what makes this house so special? This house grew to be huge. With the help of 4 different carpenters and designers, Sarah created different rooms, levels, hallways, passageways, and mysterious add-ons to the Winchester house. Now, just an estimate, because there are still rooms being found today, there are roughly about 161 rooms in this house, including about 40 bedrooms, 2 ballrooms, but one is finished and one is part of the unfinished section. Also had about 47 fireplaces, over 10,000 panes of glass, roughly about 17 chimneys, but there are signs of others that were unfinished as well. There's also apparently 3 elevators and 2 basements in the home. When Sarah first bought the property, it was about 162 acres of land. Today, it's only about 4.5 acres of land. Why is the Winchester house so interesting? Well, it's believed that Sarah took this medium's advice and built the design to her home to confuse the evil spirits and welcome the kind spirits. This is why so many rooms in this house just don't look right. There are hallways that lead to nowhere, staircases that lead up to the ceiling, windows and doors that open to walls, skylights on the floor, and doors that open to drop-offs. It is also suggested that the number 13 played an important part in the design and construction of this home. Now, that could be a variety of things. 13 windows in one room, or 13 bathrooms in the whole house, 13 gems in a specific stained glass window, or ceiling panels, trees outside, 4 added light fixtures. The number 13 just comes up a lot in the construction of this home. Now, Sarah inherited about $20 million, and her average daily income was about $1,000. So money was no object for her, and it didn't stop the construction or her crazy designs or ideas whatsoever. Some of the stained glass windows in the home were created specially from Tiffany Company. Outside, you will find different trees and flowers and fountains, and there's also a statue of what is supposed to be a Native American chief. This was supposed to be a way to potentially honor those Native Americans that could have been killed with the Winchester rifle. There was also a bell tower in this home, and neighbors reported that it would often go off at the stroke of midnight, and a lot of locals believed that this was related to or somehow connected to Sarah's influence with the spirit world. And midnight is, of course, the witching hour. There was even eventually thought the earthquake was a way of the spirits telling her they didn't like the front of the home. For a while, she actually boarded up part of the front rooms, hoping to please those spirits. On September 4th, 1922, Sarah once again took part in a seance, speaking and talking to the different spirits in her home. Later that night, she went to bed in one of the many bedrooms within her house. She was known to switch rooms quite often. During the night, Sarah passed away in her sleep at age 83. So how is this house today? Today the house is still standing. When Sarah died, her possessions were left to her niece, but the house itself wasn't actually left in part of the will. It was later sold at a private auction. A lot of the contractors thought the house would be worthless because so many unfinished rooms, some of the damage from the earthquake, and just some of the odd architecture. In February 1923, 5 months after Sarah's death, the home was opened to the public and the tours began. It is still open to the public and tours are still held there. Of course, it is more popular during the Halloween months because of the creepy ghost stories, the odd passageways, and so many people consider this to be a haunted house, or oftentimes people call it the Mystery House. There is a movie that was made about the Winchester house starring Helen Mirren. She plays Sarah Winchester in it. I believe that it came out in 2018. Also, Ghost Adventures have done a couple different episodes in the Winchester house, but I have personally not seen those episodes. If you happen to be a fan of the horror genre, then you may know the book by Stephen King called Rose Red. This book was loosely inspired by the Winchester house. The backstories of the two homes are completely different, but Stephen King has said he took inspiration. It is indeed a very interesting home. Many people believe that the house is still haunted by both good and evil spirits, stuck within the odd passageways and rooms of this home. Others simply think that Sarah was insane, and her unlimited access to money only fed that further. It offered her no real help, and it was simply an escape into her designs in the rooms of the house. I would personally love to visit the home, of course. I love supernatural stories and the things about this and supernatural. But just the architecture itself, I would love to see these weird designed rooms, or the staircases that go nowhere, the drop-offs, and even be extremely interested in a full-on house tour. So have you visited the Winchester house, or have you heard about the Winchester house? Do you think that the spirits of the rifle victims were haunting the house, and the Winchester family was truly confusing the spirits through the interesting paths in her home? Or was she simply unstable because of her multiple tragedies in her life? Was she using the house as an escape from reality? What do you think about Sarah Winchester? As always, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this bizarre and unusual world episode, recreated for ASMR. Thanks so much for watching, lovelies, and I will see you in the next video.